times 10 is easier than times 2. And I'm going to give you an example. So Johnny and I split from another business partner, not last November, but the November before. So I'm talking about 14 months as I record this. 14 months ago. There were 3 of us. We were a throuple and we became a double. And November swung around and John and I were starting out pretty much on our own again with no customers and clients. November 2023, Johnny and I had no customers and clients. I had a profile. We also had a database, and we went out with no clarity about what we were going to be selling, what our product or service mix was going to look like. Clean slate. So what we went out there is we went and pitched an idea to do some consulting work for one of the people in my network, and we signed a $3,000 gig. Johnny, remember this? The first person we signed, November 2023, it was a $3,000 gig, of which John and I instantly then said, okay, how do we times 10 that? And it's not so hard. So to go from $3,000 to $30,000, we went, okay, what we really probably need is we could have 10 people at $3,000 a month, but it'd probably be better if we had 5 people at $5,000 a month, which was $25,000, 5 people at $5,000 a month. And maybe, we'll also sell some meetings, and we'll also sell a couple digital products. But it was very simple. It was, okay, we're going to get 5 or 6 people at $5,000 a month, and we're going to hit 30K. Because our brains went, how do we times 10 that? That's what we went about doing. And over the next 8 weeks, we signed up a bunch of other people and we hit our $30,000. Then, of course, the brain goes, okay, well, how again am I going to times 10 this? How would I go from $30,000 to $300,000 a month? Now, the reality is that we could not serve 60 people in the way that we were serving 6 people. It would not have been possible. But however, this is not our first rodeo, and we've been down this path before. So as you grow, as you times 10 and times 10 times 10, you need to transfer what you do from a service into a thing. And I've given you 4 examples of here of how you can transform your service into a thing. And let me tell you, the best type of thing that you can sell is MRR revenue, monthly recurring revenue. So you might use something like this to get the lead, something like this to overcome obstacles, something like this to maybe even offset the cost of the marketing as a one-off sale. But the more people that you can get into some sort of monthly recurring revenue program, the easier your life is about to be. All right. Vision first, productization first. What was this third one? Profit first. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a whole book about this. It's worthwhile reading by Mike McCallum-Wixt. And once again, it's a different way of thinking. And that is because if we're running a business, this is the way that we've been taught to run a business. We have sales minus expenses equals profit. Here's the thing, guys and gals, we're entrepreneurs. We're outrageously optimistic. We only remember the wins. Often we're focused on growth above all else, and we're constantly being pulled left here, 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 here. So what tends to happen is that you might be, let's say you're generating $10,000 a month, and you've been doing that consistently. And from that $10,000, you've been paying yourself a modest salary, and or maybe you've been taking all that money and putting it into something else. Then what happens is you get some big payday, say it's $20,000, and you go, you know what? Everything's going to be as good as it has been in the past. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that $20,000 on growth. That sounds like a smart thing to do. But however, what tends to happen is that you then drop that money on growth. It doesn't necessarily work out the way that you expect it to, because growth is not something that happens like that. And then suddenly you're back at the other level. You're back at the $10,000 level, but you're spending the same amount of money that you'd be spending if you were generating $20,000. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I could talk about this for hours, but what I'm going to say is just go out and read the book. The better alternative, and it is a mindset shift, and I know that there's going to be people on this call right now that are going to say, well, you can't make profit until you've got profit. But the way that I want you to be thinking about things is that sales minus profit is how much you have left over to spend on expenses. And what this does, because it's a mindset lever, the same way that if I say, think about things in terms of times 10 is easier than times 2, your brain is forced to think about things in a radically new way. And rather than just trying to get by or just trying to get the next $5,000 or 10 grand, or just focus on that sustainable 5% a year, 10% a year growth, you force your brain to think about things in different ways, which forces you to get clarity and focus and grow your business in very focused ways. When I talk about productizing your business, suddenly you begin to say, okay, well, then the only way that I can truly scale this business is if I take my time and I turn my time into a thing. There's a reason why most knowledge-based businesses hit a ceiling, and that ceiling is attached to the time availability of the owner. This is a third mindset shift where you think about sales minus profit, then tells you how much you can spend on expenses. So what I've done is I've created a little worksheet. And what I want you to do is I want you to say worksheet or type the word worksheet, leave a comment worksheet if you want the worksheet, and I'll give you something like this. Because Profit First has its own set of structures, but I've got one which is, I think, useful for most businesses as they scale, particularly if you're among our B2B Blazer Pro group, which are businesses typically turning over less than $15,000 a month. If you're part of our B2B Blazer Plus group, where you may be generating between $15,000 and $30,000 a month, this is going to be useful to you too, all the way up to $1 million. $1 million and beyond, it gets a little bit different and it gets a little bit more complicated. But what I've got here is I've got a framework. And you might have to squint to see it, which is why I'm offering it. But what I've got is I've got a list of things that ways that we spend money in our businesses.